Hello, friends. How's it going? I wanted to share something that I felt like God said while I was in Sweden. I just got back a couple weeks ago, and this has been something that's been on my heart. And I was just asking God, is there something that's been on your heart that you want to say? So I wanted to share this story with you. When I was in Sweden, I go out there every year, and I have just the most amazing spiritual family out there that I adore and I love so much. And it's so cool to go out there because I just get to experience God's grace, just being there and to be able to just love on them and just encourage them with what I feel like God's saying. And I receive so much from them, just being there, just receiving, back God's love and just them speaking into my lives and my family's life. And it was such a good time. But one of the things that I wanted to share while I was there is my best friend is a production manager, and he does a thing called Sweden Rock. So he's in charge of getting all of these huge bands there. I think Iron Maiden and Ozzy Osbourne and Judas Priest and all these other bands. They have 5 stages. It's like 40,000 people. And so the first couple of days I got there, and Lulu, my amazing, amazing friend, hi Lulu, she picked us up at the airport, my best friend's wife, my best friend's Urban, and his daughter, hi Lydia, and we drove out there to the Sweden Rock Festival, and there was all of these people that were there. And we had the full VIP access. We got to go backstage and everything. So it was really cool. And I'm really not into that music at all. But it was so cool to appreciate all of the work and just all of the energy that went into throwing this festival. And it was just fun kind of checking out the inner workings of how things go on. And just like I said, all of the equipment and everything that they need. But one of the things that I wanted to share was one of the nights we were kind of mingling in the crowd, and there was thousands of people. Ozzy Osbourne was playing, and they have the full light show and everything else. And as I was watching this crowd, I had this memory of a vision. It wasn't a vision, it was actually a dream I had probably 15 years ago. And in this dream, I saw Satan, and he was running around this room. And everywhere he would run, people, it was like a school of fish, they would just start following him. And I knew in this dream that they were going to hell. And for whatever reason, I had that flash as I'm walking around, 30, 40,000 people were there in the crowd. And I felt like God was saying so many of these people are following Satan to hell. And I thought, God, you never give me words like that. That is so gnarly. So I just started praying for the people. And it was so interesting because obviously, it's a concert. So many people are just completely obliterated. They're drunk, but they were so respectful. I thought we could never get away with this show back home, because if we had 30,000 people together with very few security, there would be fights nonstop. There would be all kinds of havoc that was going on. But it seemed like the Swedish people, they just have more respect. They've been brought up with more respect for one another. So when somebody who's drunk would bump into you, they'd be like, oh, I'm sorry. And then they would just keep stumbling away, And it was really interesting because I'm like, God, I just love these people. There's just this humility about them, and there's just this thing that they've been brought up with that just seems like it's missing in the States. There isn't as much pride, I didn't feel like. But God was showing me this vision of, hey, the enemy's leading so many of these people to hell. So as I was just kind of praying and just kind of mulling over that vision that God was giving me, I was like, God, I stand in faith for everything, your love for these people. May they experience your love for people. And it was so funny because we went to bed, we were sleeping on a tour bus, and we woke up the next day, and one of the announcers, or it was in the evening time the next day, and one of the announcers was getting ready to announce the final band, which was Judas Priest. And all of these people are there, and the announcer said, Sweden Rock, Satan's people. And I had a flash again to that vision or that dream that God reminded me of the night before. And I looked at Blaze, who was there with me, and my son was there, 7. And I'm like, did he just say what I think he said? And they were like, yeah, it sounded like he said Satan's people. And the whole crowd cheered. And it was like God was confirming what he showed me the night before. I'm like, dude, who would sign up on purpose to follow Satan? He's got anything but destruction and pain for you. And I thought, man, and I know for them it's just kind of fashionable, and it's like, hey, this is my identity and in this music and this and that and the other thing. And I thought, man, that is so crazy. And so I went and talked to Lulu, and I was like, man, I felt like the announcer said, is there another word that sounds like Satan? And she's like, oh, there's no way that, he said Satan's people. And I'm like, I didn't think so, but it really sounded like it. So then I saw Urban and Ludwig, Urban and Lulu's son. And I said, it sounded like the announcer said Satan's people. And Urban's like, oh yeah, he says that every year. I'm like, are you serious? I'm like, that is so crazy that there was a crowd that was cheering when he said that. And he's like, oh yeah, he's an idiot. They say that every year. It's just, for this shock value. And I'm like, that is so nuts because of this picture that God gave me the night before. So anyways, all of that to be said, that night, as I'm sitting there watching Judas Priest, and we're sitting on this stage because there's 5 stages. Like I said, there's thousands of people watching this amazing show. And I felt like God showed me the coolest thing that I wanted to share with you guys. God said, the enemy, he makes a big, huge show of himself. And it even says in the word, it says, we're going to see Satan. We're going to be like, it was you. You were the one that brought all of this destruction and all of this chaos and all this death and pain. And it was just you, and God was saying the enemy brings so much attention to himself. He tries to exalt himself. He tries to bring as much people's focus on him as possible. And I had this vision as I was watching the crowd, and Jesus said, but I'm not like that. He said, I'm humble. And he said, and I'll love one person at a time. And I got this vision of Jesus walking through the crowd, and he was just loving one person at a time. And he said, I call my body to walk as I walked, in humility, not trying to make a big, huge show and not to try to bring all this attention to themselves, but humbly just walking, touching one life at a time. And I could see this huge contrast between the model of the enemy and the model of God. And it was so cool just seeing God humbly just touching people, saying, will you receive my love? I'm so worthy to be trusted. I have a plan for your life. And I was seeing this big, huge show on the other side where the enemy's like, look at me. Look at what you get if you follow me. And it's all just vanity, and it's all just emptiness that just leaves people feeling empty, and just that hole in their heart just gets bigger. And I thought, man, God, you were so good that you don't give up on us, that you rescued us when we were still following the ways of the world, as the word says. When we were still sinners, you saved us. And I just wanted to share that because it was such a cool picture of Jesus. And I felt like that picture brings a lot of freedom to where we're like, hey, God can't use me unless I'm on a stage. So I need to be like a celebrity, or I need to reach for stardom, or I need to be somebody in order for God to use me. And God was saying, no, it's exactly the opposite. As you trust me with you, as you lose your life, you'll find it. And the people around you will continue to be the priority. And they'll experience my love through you, which will woo them into salvation. And it was so cool to see how God has strategically placed people there. My best friend's one of the gnarliest, fearless evangelists I've ever met before. He'll talk to anybody about God. And it was so cool to see Jesus just walking through the crowd, but knowing God had strategically put believers that were there to love people into the kingdom. And it's funny because my friend, every stage manager of those 5 stages are believers, and they carry this love of God for people. And it's so funny. It reminds me of the world. There's all of this distraction, and there's all of this, hey, this is what success looks like. But God strategically places people in our lives and us in other people's lives to simply love them with the love of Christ, that they might experience the kingdom. So I just wanted to give a shout out to all of my friends in Sweden. Thank you so much for making this trip so amazing. And thank you so much for just being there for the lost, representing the love of God. And to all of you guys that are watching, I just pray, Lord, would you just continue, God, to give us that perspective that you have, that it's not about this unreachable ministry, Lord, that we can simply trust you with one another, God, trust you with the people that we meet, that they might experience your love through us that would woo them into the kingdom. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you guys soon. God bless you.